Ready, start. We further note that record shows that the appellant on 28/1/1998 complained in writing that his statement had not been properly recorded in the post-trap report, that portions were distorted, and that he was made to sign a copy without being allowed to read it. It is admitted that this written explanation was not placed on record by the prosecution, only being marked by the defense as Exhibit D1. Abbas ultimately turned hostile and alleged that he had been threatened by ACB officials to support the prosecution version. In the end, his evidence did not clearly support either side and remained internally inconsistent. In light of the foregoing discussion and applying the principles laid down in Chandrappa (Supra), we hold that the trial court's view was both reasonable and firmly rooted in the evidence on record. The acquittal was based on careful evaluation of this evidence, including the above discussed material contradictions, unreliable testimonies, and serious procedural lapses, and cannot be termed perverse or unsustainable. The High Court, on the other hand, did not demonstrate any compelling reason to depart from that view. It failed to engage with the trial court's detailed reasoning and instead substituted its own inferences without addressing the evidentiary gaps identified above. The strength of the criminal process lies in restraint as much as in scrutiny. The appellant's acquittal, having stood on reasonable grounds, deserves to stand restored. Lastly, though we will not undertake a detailed examination of the Contract Labour (Regulation and Abolition Act 1970) and the Contract Labour (Regulation and Abolition Central Rules 1971) framed thereunder, as they are not directly in issue before us, certain findings recorded by the High Court merit comment. As elaborated below, the High Court's discussion of Rule 29 of the above-mentioned Act is wholly inconsistent with the statutory scheme, while the trial court's view, by contrast, appears consistent. First, where an application for renewal is made within the prescribed time, the license stands deemed renewed during the pendency of the application. Therefore, the considerable evidence on record that there was no obligation on and no practice of contractors making repeated visits to the office to inquire about the license appears quite sound. Senior Assistant Gopal Rao has also made a statement to the effect that in 4 years (1995-1997), the complainant never visited the office for taking the renewed license before 26/9/1997. Second, the High Court travels into an unrelated tangent by stating that the appellant had no right to demand inspection of registers, and the same was a creative procedure devised by him to keep contractors under his control. This reasoning is unsustainable. To describe inspection as an exploitative device and then conjecture that a file was cleared only because rupees 3,000 was paid as a bribe, as the High Court has done, is totally unwarranted. Contract labor regulation is necessarily precarious, and an officer cannot be faulted and aspersed for requiring documentary proof of compliance, especially when the request is recorded in writing. Accordingly, the appeal is allowed.